Hi, this is Michael Spokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Today, we want to deal with members in our churches that are fighting their churches or they're fighting their pastors. And I want to emphasize today that if you're a member that fight your church or you fight your pastor, you'll never end well. You'll never end well. And I must really say that. And I'm not saying this in being a prophet of doom or what, but I just want to outline facts, and I want to outline some pointers that will show you that it is actually an abomination to be fighting your own pastor. It's an abomination to be fighting the church that you are in. And I would advise, and as Church Governance Solutions, we advise people that when people are not happy anymore in a church, instead of fighting the pastor, instead of fighting the church and garnering people and organizing people to fight the church, rather live in peace, because you are actually causing trouble. You are actually causing trouble to yourself when you start to organize people to fight the pastor or to fight the church. We have seen it happening. People that don't leave when they are having complaints or issues with the church. People that don't leave when they're having issues with the pastor. They rather stay and they want to fight the battles and they want to bring the pastor down and they want to be heroes of having fought the pastor and conquering. And I want to warn you today, because it's a very, very dangerous playground that one can find themselves in, that don't fight your church and don't fight your pastor. And if you're not happy and you feel like you cannot stay in this place anymore, I want to urge you rather to live in peace and not fight the church, not fight the pastor. There are reasons, of course, that I want to outline today that will help you, and as a member today, to make sure that you actually run away from the issue of fighting pastors or fighting the church that you are in. The first point that I want to bring about is when you miss church, remember, it is you who is affected, it's not the pastor. And this is very important, because there are many people that when things are not working well for them, when they're having grumbles and complaints about the church, they decide, you know what, I'm going to miss church, I want to bunk church, I don't want to be in church anymore. And as you do so, and you don't find another church, you're actually killing yourself, because it's you who's affected. Lack of fellowship is actually affecting you, not the pastor. This is very important. And when saints start to understand this, they'll realize that you cannot risk your spiritual life by having issues with the pastor and therefore fighting and walking away and not going to church because you're saying you're punishing the pastor. We have seen people that do that. People that bunk a church because they want to punish the church. They want the church to suffer because they don't want anybody. They don't want to do things or nobody will do what they want to do. But I want to just emphasize that you are actually punishing yourself, not the pastor at all. When you withdraw your work, because there are those that withdraw their work or the benefits that or the activities that they do in the church, those that withdraw their gifts from the church. And if you do so, God will replace you anyway and you will become irrelevant. And I'm sure many of you have seen that you have thought that you are the worshiper in a particular church. You have thought that you are the youth leader in a particular church. You have told yourself you are the assistant pastor in a certain church, and therefore you're thinking that if you withdraw your work, you withdraw the activities that you do in the church, you withdraw your talents, you think that everything will crumble down because of you. But I want to tell you now that God easily replaces people. And when God replaces you, you will become irrelevant later and you'll find yourself not having a space to shine anymore. You'll realize that you were known because of this church. You were known because of this vision, because of this pastor. So therefore, you'll realize that you become a nobody when you are rebelling against the church and therefore withdrawing your services. That's very important that we emphasize that. Excuse me. It's very important that we emphasize that. Now, when you refuse to participate in the projects of the church, God will raise much better givers than you. You have seen when you refuse to give money, you've refused to invest your resources in the church. For instance, the church is having a building project. And you tell yourself, I'm going to withdraw, I'm not going to participate, I'm not going to give my money. Have you ever realized that God raises people to participate even more? Better givers, people that will even give for the project to go even more quicker. I've seen that happening in my experience in the Lord, and this is very important that we emphasize that. And I've seen that it happens more often. And I want to emphasize that as a child of God, don't ever think that you are irreplaceable. Don't ever think that you are squeezing people or you're punishing people by withdrawing your resources. So give your resources, or if you don't want to give, you want to give somewhere else. So please rather move and go to somewhere else where you will give, rather than thinking that you will actually squeeze them for not participating. So I want to urge you to be aware of that God will raise even more better givers, people that will actually push the project even much more quicker than you would do yourself. When you fight the pastor, you become the enemy of God. And this is a very important point that I want you to know. Because everybody should know that the pastor is a servant of God. Somebody who has been given a vision by God. Somebody is called by God and assigned for a destiny in this world, for an assignment that they need to accomplish. Now you come and fight them, and you come to be on their way and stop them from accomplishing that which God has called them for. Do you know what you're doing? You're actually stopping God. You're actually fighting God. You're actually putting your finger in the eye of God. So I want to warn you that as a church or as an individual, as a child of God, be careful not to fight your pastor, because when you do so, you're basically fighting God himself. So you're waging war against God. So please avoid that, because you're not going to win when you've got a battle with God. So therefore, don't be the enemy of God. Rather be on the side of God at all times. And I'm emphasizing this because this is a very important point that I wanted to emphasize. And please be careful not to find yourself being the enemy of God. When you leave a church, more serious people come and attend that church. And I'm sure you've seen that more serious people, more participating people, more committed people come when you've left the church, because you've actually left the space. And sometimes I'm sure you've realized that it's not even people that come from outside. God raises the very same people that you were blocking for them to go up and do the work. You were actually blocking the people that you were supposed to move so that they can step in. So therefore, it is very important for you to realize that when you leave a church and think that you are squeezing them, you're basically making a space for someone that God want to use even much more. So please move on. If you want to move on, don't try to complicate things. Don't try to think that they will feel your absence. So please just move on in a good spirit, because God will replace you and raise people that will do even much more better in the church. When you eat your tithes and your offerings and eating your sacrifices that God wanted you to give, you are literally limiting yourself to see financial breakthrough in your life. And many people have actually had heresies and doctrines that are wrong, false doctrines, that people are teaching and say, tithe is not important. Tithe is a thing of the Old Testament. Tithe is something that is not relevant in our days. And that is a lie from the pit of hell. And I want to emphasize this because as Church Covenant Solutions, we believe that tithe is the greatest source of any church running financially sound, because tithe, one, is consistent. Number two, tithe is easier to budget with because you would know the intake of the church at that particular time. So therefore, if you are having people that are working in the church and you have to pay them, you can actually agree with them a salary because you would be knowing how much is the intake of the church. So it's unlike offering, because offering is unpredictable. Because offering is a decision of man who may today give 100 rands and tomorrow give 20 rands. So that's not predictable. So that is not also budgetable, because if I may call that such a name as budgetable. So it is very key that we understand that it's difficult to budget when you deal with offerings. But there are people that will withdraw their tithes, they will withdraw their offering, they will withdraw also their sacrifices, and they think that they're squeezing the church. But you are actually squeezing yourself, because what you're doing, you're strangulating yourself financially. And that is why most of the people struggling financially, because they just don't open their hands towards God. The very same blessings of finances that we receive, they are from God. So therefore, if we want to open the tap, we need to open our hands first so that we can see finances coming our way. But that will only happen when we follow the principles of giving or the principles of financial management as well. That will help us to actually move further to become better people. So therefore, don't hold back on your tithe. Don't hold back on your offerings and sometimes sacrifices that you may have been giving. Keep doing that. When you gossip about your pastor, you are embracing the spirit of rebellion. And many people that have started gossiping about their pastors, speaking bad about them, amongst other members, they've actually adopted the spirit of rebellion. And you'll see that there's nothing that the pastor will say that they will embrace, because they are rebellious against this pastor. They have spoken bad about this pastor, and generally you'll find them even thinking that the pastor know what they've been saying about him, and therefore they are afraid. They are actually not able to focus, and forever actually afraid that the pastor might be knowing what they've said about him. And therefore, because of that, that develops a spirit of rebellion. When the pastor is quiet, you think that he knows, but he's actually just keeping quiet. And therefore, you develop the spirit that's antagonist against him. And that's the spirit of rebellion. And that kills you, because the spirit of rebellion kills the owner of that spirit, which is yourself when you are embracing it. Very, very key that we basically emphasize that. When you speak evil of your pastor or even of your church, the angels assigned for that particular ministry, they will withdraw from you. Because remember, as children of God, as people, and when God has actually assigned a vision or a calling, God has assigned angels that will be protective, that will fight for that vision to succeed, that will make sure that that vision goes on. And everybody who fights against that vision, therefore, they're exposing themselves from the depart of these angels from protecting them as well. And that is why when you look at it, you'll see people that have fought their own pastors and they've actually waged war against them. They don't end well generally. And it's not that anybody bewitched them. It's just because they've bewitched themselves by becoming rebellious against their leaders, which is the pastor himself. So that's very important. So please don't speak evil about your pastor. When you refuse discipline or you refuse correction from the pastor, you are putting yourself in danger as well, because the correction that the pastor is correcting you towards is not manipulative at all. It's because he knows better. It's because he's more matured. It's because he can foresee things coming. So therefore, be careful as an individual not to be against your pastor and refusing of discipline and refusing of correction as well. Be subject to correction. Be subject to being disciplined by the pastor, and you'll see your ways prosperous. And many of us have actually lost it out here because we cannot be corrected, we cannot be disciplined as well, and therefore our ways are not prosperous. Finally, your pastor is the carrier of the ministry mantle, is the carrier of the anointing, of the calling of the ministry itself, and the mandate of the church as well. So it is not you who's carrying that mandate. So with you or without you, remember, the work will continue to succeed, because you are not part of the vision and you are not the vision yourself. So the vision is with the pastor, and even if you leave, the vision will continue. There will still be people that God raises to come and support this vision and this ministry. And that is why, as Church Covenant Solutions, we really emphasize that if you're not happy anymore, so find your way out so that God can raise other people that will be supportive of this particular ministry, and that will help. Don't hang around. Don't block others from coming up and participating, but rather move away so that you can allow other people that God is raising in this ministry to participate and to share their gifts and to be part of what's happening in this ministry. I want to end up here today, and I want to allow you just to ponder around this. Very important, very powerful as well, and I hope this will help you and to look forward to do that in your church. And please be warned that you don't actually wage war against your pastor, because you're basically waging war against God himself. Please like our YouTube channel as well. Press the bell for the notification button that will notify you every time we've posted some videos, and that will help you. And may the good Lord bless you. And cheers for now.